pinch hit for me today, I'm sure that the bat that you use will be a home run.
Okay. Well, or a touchdown, as the case may be. What do you think, Larry? There you go. All right. Well, we have back for his annual visit, and I don't know why he doesn't come to visit more often. We never rat on him or anything. But for his annual official visit to us is Larry Clemens from the city of Gladewater, the other orange and black in the neighborhood.
Woo!
I told you we're going to limit this thing. And he is going to talk to us a little bit about, well, if there were any rule changes in the UIL this year, he's going to mention them to us. Welcome, Larry Clemens.
It's always good to come to the Gilmer Rotary Club once a year. I have visited several times in the past, but usually it's once a year. But anyway, of course, now most of you know I live in Gilmer, but I have an office in Gladewater. So,
Yeah, it is.
hello.
Okay,
So,
A little closer.
anyway, I live in Gilmer, but I do work in Gladewater and in the Gladewater Rotary Club, and so anyway, I've kind of got ties to both communities. So anyway, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the NCAA rule changes, of which the UIL does participate with some exceptions in those rules when we play our Friday night games. And we're going to talk about a few of them. And what I'm going to talk about is, I've got this video running here, and what it is, it's explaining the new blocking below the waist rule. And I'm not going to really go into a lot of detail on that. I'm going to give you some highlights on that. I don't want to bore you, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. But as I've told you before, well, let me get started. This will be my 37th year to officiate football, and I was, and it's going to be my last. I'm retiring off the field this year.
Really?
Yes, I will be still involved in football. I'm in the Southland Conference in the replay booth. I'll be a communicator this year in the replay booth, hoping to move to the replay official in the future. And so that's what I'll be doing from now on, is I'll be up in that booth looking at those plays every play. So that's a whole different way to look at a football game when you're used to looking at it on the field. It's a lot different when you're in the replay booth. And you know, you think, I always thought, well, those guys had it easy up there. But the pressure is not on the field, because all we do is see something, we throw a flag. And it might be there and it might not be there. Most of the time it is. But in the replay booth, you have a limited amount of time to make a decision. You have to look at every play. You virtually look at every play. And you have a limited amount of time to analyze that, to see if we're going to stand, we're going to confirm, or we're going to reverse. So there's a lot of pressure up there, but I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the rules and that have changed. Now, I've told you before that every 2 years the rules change. Now, on the odd year, this is a even numbered year, so on the odd numbered years, we can change some rules like we did last year that have to do with safety. But this is actually a rule change year, and these rules will be good for 2 years. But then next year they have the option to come back and to change anything for a safety issue. The blocking issue has been you know, for the last 9 or 10 years. You know, I've come here and told you, well, this is the blocking rule this year. Then the next year it changed. Then the next year it went back to what it was 2 years ago. And it was so confused, we couldn't even call it. I mean, really, realistically, it was hard to call the blocking below the waist rule. Now they've kind of simplified it to where it's going to make it easier for us to call. And I'll get into a little bit of that in a few minutes. So let's go ahead and I've got a PowerPoint so I can keep up with what I wanted to talk about. And like I said, I'm going to talk about the things that I think you'll be able to see on the field. There's some things, some changes that you won't even know have changed, and we'll try not to bore you with those. And I didn't make this PowerPoint up, I borrowed it from somebody. I usually make the PowerPoint, but I didn't make it this year. So I'm kind of retiring early, I guess you could say. Okay, that's Luke, my son. He's in the United States Navy, in case you didn't know that. Okay. Okay, knee pads, pants must cover the knees. I will go over this because you're gonna see people pulling their knee pads down. And, you know, the coaches have no excuse on this one because we told them last year that this rule was gonna be in effect. The rule changed last year, but the effective date of the change was not until the 2018 season. So all this means is these guys wearing Bermuda shorts, they can't wear Bermuda shorts anymore. They're going to have knee pads that cover their knees. And we're taking a hard line on this. The NCAA and the UIL want us to take a very hard line on this. So, for instance, if a guy goes out and if we see a guy coming off the sideline and his knee pad is up here, we're just sending him off the field. He's not even going to play. And he's got to stay out or they got to burn a timeout. So, and we've had 2 scrimmages. You know, the scrimmages were the past 2 weeks, and we've had issues with knee pads in scrimmages. Now they say, well, these are practice pants, or these are. I had one kid from Caddo Mills the other night say, well, my pants are too small. They won't. I said, well, you need to get bigger pants. You know, so that's their logic. But what one team did in a scrimmage is they actually it was at the Kilgore-Tyler College football game last Saturday night. They actually sent one of the teams to the sideline, their players, and they actually had to tape their knee pads over their knees because the pants were so short. So we're not playing around on this. We told the coaches that too. The knee pads have to cover the knees. Doesn't matter if they're that big around or that big around. They have to cover the knees.
So what's the penalty?
There's no penalty. Just they have to go out of the game. So if it's your starting quarterback, he's got to go out of the game, and if you want him to come back in, you got to burn a timeout. So I guess that would be a form of penalty. And you don't need to know that. And then I told you that he has to stay out for a play unless they call a timeout. A lot about the knee pads, the first 5 or 6 slides. Now, this is an interesting one here pertaining to the knee pad. Let's say that you've got a wide receiver. And let's face it, the wide receivers are the ones that are pretty guilty of this a lot of times. They have these knee pads that hit them about here. And let's just say he runs out for a pass and he doesn't contact anybody or anything. Well, you know, the rule says if your equipment becomes illegal through play, then you don't have to go out. We'll tell you to correct it and you can continue on. Well, that's not through play. Through play is if he goes out and blocks somebody or somebody blocks him or he catches a pass or something like that. So if he just runs down the field and he comes back and his knee pads are there, we can send him out of the game because that's not through play. So, come on, let's see here. And that's okay. This is new. You'll actually see this year. You know, several years ago we came up. You know, we put in the 40-25 second clock. You know, at one time we just had a 25-second clock. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, we went to the college timing rule, which uses a 40-second clock as well as a 25. We have a play clock and a game clock. Okay, what's going to happen this year is after you score a touchdown, that 40-second clock is going to start. So now, and we're telling most of the coaches, and Rusty, where's Rusty? It's going to be imperative that you go down and speak with the officials this year. You have to go speak to the officials and get... Are you a clock operator too? Okay, both of you have to go visit the officials this year before the game because they're going to tell you how they're going to work it. Now, what we've been telling people is that as soon as the touchdown's scored, we don't want you to start the 40-second clock. You know, because what we want you to do is the officials will go up, and they usually go up for 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, and then come down. When they come down with their signal, then we want you to start the 40-second clock. Okay. So that's going to eliminate a lot of these, you know, on extra points or on kick, because we're going to get to kickoffs in a minute. After, you know, the coach is holding the players over on the sideline and telling them this and that and then running them in. I mean, they're going to have to get the play called and bring them in and let's get going because they got 40 seconds. Now, if you're on offense, you know, let's say that you want the ball. We're always going to put the ball in the middle of the field after a touchdown unless you tell us to put it on the right or left hash. Well, you've got until the clock gets to 25 seconds to tell us where you want that ball. So if you don't tell us If you tell me at 20 seconds, I want the ball on the left hash and it's in the center of the field, play on. We're not moving it. Unless you call a timeout, then we'll move it. So that's new. That's big. Now after a free kick, on the touchdown, there's been one change since we've been all summer telling these coaches a change has come down the line last night, well, over the weekend. What we were saying was that teams that play fast, we weren't going to hold them up on a touchdown. In other words, we were saying, hey, you score a touchdown, you got your offense in there, line up and you can go. Well, it was thought of by the powers that be that the true spirit of the rule wasn't to let the offense run a play without the defense being ready or out there. That seems a little unfair. Had a conversation with Coach Turner this morning. He said, "What? Now wait a minute now. Tell me that again." And I explained to him. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we are going to hold them up. We are going to hold the offense up if the defense is substituting. Now if nobody substitutes and we put the ball down, we can go. But most of the time there's going to be some substitutions in there after a touchdown scored. So that's one change that's, we're a week away, or less than a week away. We're 72 hours away from the first kickoff, and we're already changing the rules, or amending the rules. So, but I think in all fairness, that's really the way the intent of the rule was meant to be. Yeah, Randy?
What brought that on is because after a touchdown, they've been just goofing off or takes so long.
Well, I mean, that's part of it, but really this comes from the college game. They want to speed the college game up. And really, when this rule came out, we thought the UIL would accept it. In other words, they would say, hey, we're playing with NCAA rules, but we're not playing with this rule. And they didn't. They went with it. Because the high school game, the typical high school game, is 2.5 hours long. We start at 7:30. We do the halftime, if it's 28 minutes, like it's supposed to be. We do the halftime. You know that's not right, don't you? We do the halftime and all that, and let me turn this off. Little deal there. In 2.5 hours, or maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes. If you got a team that passes and can't catch, then you're looking at 3 hours or so. So we really didn't need to trim our game down. But the college, they want that college game, the time trimmed down a little bit. So that's where the rule came in. They want
high school's not really going to go by that.
No, we are. We're going by it. But we didn't. None of us thought they would because we don't need to adjust the timing. But we are going by it. Okay. So on a free kick is just a kickoff. It's a kickoff to begin the game, to begin the half, after a score, after a safety. That's a free kick. So what's going to happen after a free kick is, as soon as the officials come up and kill the ball, guess what, Rusty? That 40-second clock's going to start. So there's no more of this Coach Turner and Coach Metzel over there. Okay, we're going to run this. No, let's run this. No, let's run that. No, let's run this. None of that anymore. Where we're saying, Coach, get them out, get them out, get them out. They're going to have that play called and get them out on the field because 40 seconds, you got to delay a game. So now we are going to hold them up in this case. And the reason we were always going to hold them up in this case because this is a change of possession. So after a change of possession, we're always going to you'll see the referee come out and do this. And that's just telling the umpire to come up over the ball and prevent the snapper from snapping the ball until the defense gets set. And then after that happens, we'll come down, we'll point to the umpire, and we'll play ball. So we are going to hold them up in that case as well. So that's big right there. And a lot of teams were thinking, well, we'll just put our quarterback and all our backs in the kickoff team and we'll run up there and run a play. But when we told them, no, we're going to hold you up, that ruined that idea. You got to watch these coaches, they scheme all the time. And that applies on a safety too, this 40-second deal. And what we're really, here's another issue too, not an issue, but another point. It's just going to be a normal play, just like a regular scrimmage play where you've got first down and they run a ball up the middle for 3 yards. We just put the ball down and go. Well, after a kickoff, I'm not going to sit back there and blow the whistle or tell the quarterback, hey, we're just going to put the ball down. The 40-second clock's running. There's no need for any signal from an official to play. They're just going to have to play. So, they're going to have to get used to that too. Instead of waiting for us to mark it ready, they're just going to play on. So, And like this says, it's just the next play. It's just gonna be an ordinary play. Yeah, we talked about that. Ooh, okay, I talked about we're gonna use substitution. Okay, Rusty, this is for you guys, you and Karen. Now, I didn't make this, so that's a little joke up there. I'm just using this. But he's got in red letters there, will not begin the game, okay? Well, we're gonna play the game whether you come down there or not. But then we're gonna file a report and say, hey, we didn't meet with the clock operator. And then the next game, you'll probably want to go down and meet with them. But all I'm saying is it's going to make the game flow a lot better if you know how they want it to work. So. Fair catch of a free kick. Okay, this is new. You'll see this. Okay, everybody know what a fair catch is? What's a valid fair catch signal? Somebody give me a valid fair catch signal. There you go. Okay, what's an invalid signal? There's one. There's one. This is one. So on a kickoff, you could always fair catch a kickoff, right?
Right.
Always. But now when we have a fair catch of a kickoff inside the 25-yard line, we're going to put the ball on the 25-yard line. So we're encouraging them not to run the ball back. We're encouraging them to make a fair catch, put the ball on the 25. Now, there's a few little stipulations that go along with this. Only the guy that signals, now, before I get there, and it doesn't matter if it's an invalid signal, a valid signal, whatever, you still get the ball on the 25-yard line. And there is no penalty for an invalid signal. We used to have one several years ago, but they took it out. So now let's say that Roy is behind me, unless Roy's in front of me, and I give a fair catch signal like this, and Roy catches the ball on the, say I'm on the 3-yard line, and Roy's on the 10-yard line, and I give a fair catch signal, and Roy catches the ball. Where are we going to put the ball in that case? We're going to put it on where Roy was, the 5-yard line. Only the person that gives the fair catch signal and possesses the ball has the privilege of having the ball put on the 25-yard line.
What if Roy catches it and runs it back?
Well, if he fair catches it and runs it back, we'll blow it
No,
dead.
I'm saying that if the guy that signals, or Roy catches it,
He can't run.
and he can't run it.
Yeah, because when you give a fair catch signal,
Everybody.
you're telling everybody in the stadium, I promise my team won't advance the ball. That's all a fair catch signal does. It protects you, and it also says my team's not going to advance the ball. So that's what a fair catch signal does. Now, here's another little caveat to this. Let's say that I'm back here giving a valid fair catch signal, and I catch the ball and I get blown up. And that's called kick catch interference. In other words, they violate that 1-yard zone that's in front of me, shoulder to shoulder. And they don't even have to touch me, and I can still catch the ball. It can be a penalty. But let's say I get blown up. Well, what we're going to do then, the coaches really didn't like this. We're going to take that ball to the 25-yard line, personal foul, kick catch interference, automatic first down on the 40-yard line.
Whoa.
That's a big penalty right there. Big. You go from 1st and 10 on the 25 to 1st and 10 on the 40. They didn't like that at all. Let's see here. Yeah, we talked about that. Blocking below the waist. Okay, this is really interesting right here. Again, I'm not going to bore you with all the gory details, but I will point out a few things that I think you might notice. Okay. Everybody's heard of the tackle box. I've told you about the tackle box before. It extends 5 yards either side of it's 5 yards either side of the snapper, all the way back to the team A's end line, which is the back of the goal line. So you've got this little bitty area right here. The only guys on the team that can block below the waist from from the side, from the 10 and 2, you've heard me talk about the 10 and 2. Only guys that can do that are the guards, the tackles, and the snapper. Those 5 linemen right there. So what we're saying is, whenever they're in that tackle box, and the ball's in the tackle box, then what it amounts to is their initial charge. They can go out and they can cut a guy. The coaches like to use the word cut block. They can cut a guy right here. Now, if they go below the knee, what's that? Clipping. They can't do that, so they have this area up here where they can block below the waist. Now, let's say they a lot of these schools will try to sneak in a tight end in that 5-yard area. That end is restricted. It's only the 5 linemen, the tackles, the guards, and the snapper. So if you say, well, we've got a tight formation, we've got that tight end inside the tackle box, doesn't matter. He's still restricted. Now,
Larry, so even on unbalanced, it would still be the 5, so you're going off numbers.
Right.
Jersey number.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So even on an unbalanced line, you could get into a situation where you could have an illegal block. Now, let's talk about your backs. In fact, let me get this, let's see here. So let's just read this. Linemen with initial position completely inside the tackle box may legally block below the waist to the side towards the original position of the ball and towards their own end line while inside the tackle box until the ball leaves the tackle box. And also, once a lineman leaves the tackle box and comes back in the tackle box, he's restricted. Once you go out, you lose that privilege. So backs in the tackle box, stationary at the snap, may block 10 and 2 towards the original position of the ball, but not from the side or towards their own end line. So all this means is if you got a back that's stationary, not in motion, he can go and he can block. Now last year, if a guy was coming through the middle here, and he could come and he could cut him right here from the side. But this year he has to be presented the 10 and 2, and he has to block from the 10 and 2 position, or it's an illegal block. So there's a lot of blocks this year that are going to be illegal that were legal last year, okay? So, okay, all other Team A players are allowed to block below the waist only if the force of the initial contact is from the 10 and 2 area, okay? And that's the front. So, and remember I said the initial contact, okay? So what we're saying is nobody on the team can block from the side except those 5 interior linemen, and that's only when they're in the tackle box and the ball's in the tackle box. Okay, now this is the one that really got them right here. This is the one that really got them. Team A players may not block below the waist when the block occurs 5 yards or more beyond the neutral zone. So that means you've got a sweep going around the right side, and you've got number 62 leading the sweep, and last year he could go in and he could block the defensive guy from 10 and 2 below the waist. This year, if he blocks him more than 5 yards in advance of the neutral zone, that's an illegal block. It has to be high. He has to block high. So when that ball gets outside the tackle box, and that player is more than 5 yards in advance of the neutral zone, he's restricted, where even if he was unrestricted when it snapped, he's restricted now because he's 7 or 8 yards down the field. He has to block high from the 10 and 2 position, or he's going to commit a foul. They really didn't care for that. Okay, this hasn't changed any. The defense for the last several years, the only time the defense could block below the waist was they have a 5-yard buffer, 5 yards in advance and 5 yards behind the neutral zone. That's where they could block below the waist, okay? Now they still couldn't block below the waist when there was a Team A player or an offensive player in position to receive a handoff or a backwards pass. They couldn't block below the waist, and they still can't. But if they're just out there trying to bust up 2 guys coming in, if he hits him 3 yards in advance of the neutral zone low, then he's okay. But if it's 8 yards, then he's committed a foul. Leaping. Okay, this particular rule here, we had a rule several years ago that on a try or an extra point, a field goal or a try, that they couldn't run up there and leap over the line. If they landed If they landed on the other team, it was a foul one year. If they landed on their team and the other team, it was a foul the next year. Then a couple years later, if they jumped last year, if they jumped over the entire pile and didn't touch anybody, it was still a foul. So this year, what they were doing is we had that shield that protects the punter. You know, you got the punter back here, and then you've got the 3 guys that come in and protect the punter. Well, what was happening is they were leaping over those guys. So to make the rule more consistent with this rule, with the PAT and field goal rule, now what they're saying is that it's now illegal for them to, if inside the tackle box, everything's inside the tackle box, to take a run and leap over and land on one of the protectors, okay? Now, if we have a gap, if Roy and I are there and we've got a gap like this, they can run into us and come through the gap, but they can't leap over us and land on us. It's personal protectors. That's a 15-yard penalty, automatic first down. And they just want that to be more consistent. That just kind of explains what I just did. Now, I didn't say this. If you're within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage on a PAT or a field goal, then you can jump up and land on people. But if you're more than 1 yard, that's where the restriction comes in. And we'll just talk about that. Talk about the gap. Field goal, penalty enforcement. I like this rule change. You know, up until this year, if you kicked the field goal and it was good and the other team fouled, what was your choice? Take the points, or get the points off the board, have the penalty, and go. Well, this year, you've got the choice of taking the points and penalizing on the succeeding kickoff, or in extra period, if you go to extra period. So yeah, so I thought that was pretty good rule change. Okay. Points after a touchdown on the last play of the game. Okay. What this rule does is, let's say that Gilmer and Gladewater are playing. I don't care who wins. Todd, I think Todd does, but anyway, I don't care.
Sure he does.
So anyway, last play of the game, and the score is 12 to 7 in favor of one of the teams. I won't pick a team. And that team scores, and so now it's 12 to 7, right? So let's make it 12 to 9. 12 to 9. Let's get the score where the team that scores is 2 points ahead at the end of the game. Okay? So now we got a score of 14 to 12. Now the team that scored has an option. They don't have to run the extra point. They can say, we're done. Because most of the time, what would happen? They'd just take a knee and we'd go to the house. Well, the UIL, we're going to play with that rule, but when we get to district games, most of you probably know what positive points are. If you're a positive points district, then you have to go for the extra points. But like in these preseason games, like Friday night, if Gilmer and Atlanta get knotted up and one of them scores and goes ahead 21 to 19, and there's no time left on the clock, then the scoring team doesn't have to do an extra point. They can say, we're done.
Yeah.
So, and that just eliminates a lot of sometimes fighting and pushing and shoving and all that stuff. So, okay, that's about it. So, you know, not a lot of rule changes, not a lot of hard rule changes, but some that are pretty interesting and will make some pretty interesting you know, choices for a lot of coaches in some of these situations. So, but again, like I said, I've done this for 37 years, and it's been a good ride. I've had 2 5A state championship games, many playoff games. I've been to little schools, big schools. Had the biggest game in the state 2 years in a row at Jerry's World for the state championships. So it's really been a good ride, and I've enjoyed it. Some of my best friends are football officials and will be after I'm gone. And you know, I was going somewhere the other day, and I started thinking, and if I counted up, and that's the varsity only, not sub-varsity or pee-wee. I mean, I did them all. But if you counted up all the varsity and college games that I've done, you'd probably be at about 1,000.
Wow.
That's a lot of football games. It's probably right at 1,000 games that I've officiated at the varsity or college level. So, and I'm still doing the college level. So, but anyway, any questions? Yeah, Randy.
This is not particularly on the rules, but I read an article here, it's been 2 or 3 months ago, where they're having problems getting officials, and I believe the Abilene chapter are having to work with the schools, and the schools, they don't have enough officials to go around with the schools, are having to schedule, say, a high school game for Thursday night, and another high school game Friday night, and a high school game on Saturday night. Is that gonna, you see that coming this way?
That's a very serious problem, and we're not only in West Texas is seeing more of it than we are here, but we're also seeing a lot of it here. You know, in TASO, which is the governing body, you know, you got UIL and you got TASO, and we're, you know, the officials are members of TASO. I think it's something like 60-something% of football officials are over the age of 50, I believe. I'm 68 years old. I've been doing it 37 years. I've got a lot of friends that are my age that have been doing this and are starting to step down. We're going to be in serious, because we can't get young guys. They don't have the same, they're just different. They got too many other things going on in their lives right now. So, you know, when we all go away, unless we get somebody to replace us, we're going to be in a mell of a hess, as they say, you know, because we're not going to have, you know, as much as you want to have football games without officials, I don't think you can play the game without officials. We're a necessary evil, you know, but or maybe not evil, but we're necessary. We're necessary. So it's a problem, and it's a serious problem. We've got it. Now our chapter does an excellent recruiting job. We recruited like 30-something officials last year, and we kept about 15. Which you say, well, that's not very good. Well, that is really good. And this year we've recruited about 25 or so, and we still, I think they've all paid their dues, so we'll probably keep about half of those. Here's what happens, and I think Rick will support me on this. You get these new officials, and where do they go? They go on Thursday night to these games, right? And you got junior high coaches out there that are young, and they just wear their rear ends out. I mean, they just berate. And so they do this 2 or 3 weeks or a whole season and say, you know, I've got better things to do than sit there for 4 hours, because Thursdays last forever. They start at 5 and go till 10 sometime. I got better things to do than sit there and listen to somebody, you know, challenge my mother and her, you know, her sanctity and all this stuff. I've got better things to do. So that's where we lose them. And I bet Rick and Coach Turner have both addressed their junior high coaches and said, hey guys, you got to lay off these guys. You know, Jeff was pretty good at this. I mean, he would run down. You know, I've told you the story about when I first started officiating here in Gilmer on Thursdays, and he'd run down, Mr. Clemens, I can't believe you'd call that on my field. And I'd just stand there and look at him and shake my head, you know. And, you know, but he got to where, I know when I was here, he wouldn't even come down anymore, because he'd know everything was okay. But we still have, that's where the problem lies right there. That is the problem right there. So.
People think that it does good when they chew y'all out, does it?
No. I mean, because, well, look at it this way. If you're up in the stands hollering and screaming about a call, are we going to change the call because you're hollering and screaming? Now, you paid your money, and you can do whatever you want to up there within reason. But